How is that different than the regular school year?
Not really much different.
Yes. So, welcome to College Talk Tuesday. This is where we talk about all things college, specifically what's going on in the given time frame when we're on the air. So, September now, and not only are kids back in school, but seniors, class of 2018 kids and families are pretty busy with finishing up college applications and essays and getting going on the financial aid and scholarships process. So we're going to talk a little bit today about some of the glaring mistakes, which can be mistakes of omission as well as commission, meaning it's not always about what you do, it could be what you don't do. And I want to point out that we are also revving up a more full webinar, web class. It's going to be tomorrow night, 8 p.m., and the link is right here on this page, cs4l.tv. That's College Success for Less. And that's going to be the 21 deadliest financial aid mistakes and how to avoid them.
Like dirty toothbrush in a gas station?
Okay.
Perhaps?
Yes. You can insert your own disgusting thing that you want to avoid. You can go political. You can go scatological.
Just trying to reel them in.
Yeah. I think it's moist toothbrush in a gas station bathroom.
Really, any bathroom.
Or a sandwich in a gas station. You know, who knows? There's all sorts of things. Wet sandwich in a gas station.
Sandwich in a bathroom.
Yeah, wet. Okay. So that's the we're gonna run through a couple today. Now you were mentioning to me the other day, maybe this morning. I don't know if you had something specifically in mind. You had a story to tell. And I don't know if that was a mistake. Do you know what you're talking about? Because, of course, I didn't write it down. I don't know if you wrote it down. But you had something you wanted to speak about specifically today. And you said, I'm talking about that today. Do you know what that was?
About some things that are kind of bright, new, shiny, and not good or bad here, there, or the other. But this year, what's new on the FAFSA?
Oh, right. Okay.
Okay.
So that was a big thing. So before we get into the mistakes, can you talk into this?
Of course.
Just a prop. I'm kidding. It's funny. So that actually is kind of a mistake. So so that this will be a bonus bit of information in terms of the whole process. So before we get into that, why don't we talk specifically on financial aid? And by the way, if you are just joining us, pop in to comments, say hi. We're going to be checking periodically to see if you have any questions, and if you are watching on replay, not necessarily live, that's also an opportunity for you to get into the comments here. So don't be shy. Okay. So let me see. I see a few people who are coming on already. I see 3 people, and I don't have any idea how do we see who's on. Do you know how to do that?
I can dabble and try.
All right. There's a way to do that, but I just don't know how to do it.
Okay.
But anyway, we can check the comments.
I'm gonna try.
Yeah, Facebook changes things, or I forget how to do things, or I'm not sure what's going on. So, all right. So in terms of financial aid, so the FAFSA and the CSS profile, which are the two, not the only, but those are the 2 main financial aid forms. Those come out October 1st. They're not due October 1st. They come out in October, and what that means is now is the time, if you have a senior, to start getting your ducks in a row. I mean, we have private clients that have been doing this for a couple of years, which is ideal, but of course not everyone does that. So if you're watching and you're panicking, don't panic. The forms are not due October 1st, but they're going to come due according to, it's not like a tax return which is due April 15th. There are multiple due dates, and those each depend on your school.
Correct.
Yeah.
And there are advantages to be had by being on time and not blowing deadlines. And every school has their own priority financial aid deadline depending on how you're applying to that school. If you're applying early action or early decision, you need to check out the school's website and see when the priority financial aid deadline for early action or early decision is, because it may be different than the application deadline for early admission or early decision.
Or they could coincide.
Or they could coincide.
And
there is no uniformity in it between the schools. You must check your school's website.
So I think what we just did inadvertently is we just kind of segued into some of the mistakes, and you kind of stole my thunder. But that's good though. I'm okay with that. I don't really feel that way.
Okay.
So let's go through the 3 mistakes first, then you get into what you were going to say about the.
Okay.
So the first mistake just alluded to is overlooking your deadlines. So a lot of families, kids and parents, guidance counselors, they get fixated on the early decision, which is binding, or early action. Those might be November 1, November 15th. I think UNC Chapel Hill is October 15th.
October 15th. Right.
So they vary. But what Pearl was also saying is the financial aid deadlines can vary also. There isn't one universal deadline. So that is a big mistake that people commit. I think we covered that.
And by the way, just an overriding theme in this process, if the one thing you can all do to assuage yourself a little bit, because unfortunately in and of itself it's a tumultuous process, if you can stay ahead of the deadlines, because there are so many moving parts, from even if you're a junior, from junior year on, in terms of getting your testing underneath your belt, getting it out of the way, deciding, narrowing down on your list, going to see schools, knowing how to meaningfully look at schools. These are all things that come at you almost like an avalanche and get faster as you get into the senior year. Then you're really juggling things. You may be taking more tests, you are applying at the same time, you are seeing what the financial aid deadlines, you are participating in your classes, which should not be overlooked because your grades still matter as a senior. So best advice, no different than the actual senior year, and keeping things straight and getting ahead of things. Plan early, get ahead of things, and pay attention to deadlines.
Okay, so we're still ahead of the curve if you're a senior, class of 2018, a little bit, but we're hitting crunch time. So you have to research your deadlines. Number 2, in terms of mistakes, if you're just joining us, we're running through a few of the big mistakes that we're going to be talking about in tomorrow night's webinar, which is at 8 p.m. You're going to be up?
I'll do my best.
8 p.m. Eastern, and that's at www.cs4l.tv, collegesuccessforless.tv, and that webinar is 21 deadly college financial aid mistakes and how to avoid them. All right, so deadlines is one. The second one, I think, that we see people goof up all the time is not filing the correct forms or not knowing what's
Correct.
required.
That's right. Each school, again, as I was saying, there is a lack of uniformity in this process. So too is in terms of the forms that are required. Some schools require only the FAFSA. There are about 4,000 or so schools out there. They all take the FAFSA if you are seeking aid, which is the free application for federal student aid. And many schools, about maybe 300 or so, 3 to 400 of that 4,000, require an additional form which is called the CSS profile. In addition to those 2 forms, depending on the specific school, they may have additional requirements than those 2 main forms. If you are a divorced or in a separated situation, that school could also require what's called the non-custodial parent profile. If you own a business and you're self-employed, that fact may then trigger other requirements like a business farm supplement. So there is not uniformity. It doesn't mean, okay, so I have to send this to every school. No, you don't. But you do need to pay attention to what each school wants.
And you don't want to blow this off and then wake up too late after your kid gets in and you discover that you're not getting any type of financial aid award because you're missing some forms. So you need to be very, very obsessive compulsive about checking and double and triple checking what's required from each school. All right. Mistake number 3, inconsistencies. So what do you think about that? I'll let you comment on that because I have my own idea of inconsistencies.
Well,
putting you on the spot.
General
hot seat.
Inconsistencies. Okay.
In the forms, with the financial aid forms and the financial aid process.
They can be really on its face. Things you're saying on the FAFSA do not match up to the information on its face that you're putting in the CSS profile, and that disconnect in and of itself will go, whoop, red flag. And when you're red flag...
Give an example, please.
Okay. If you count an asset, for example, on the CSS profile, and then fail to mention it, or mention it in a different value on the FAFSA, that's an inconsistency. And that's a problem, because then it just begs questions. Why are these different? What else is different? We need to take a closer look at this. You know, that's the result, which typically doesn't inure to your benefit.
Well, extra scrutiny?
Extra scrutiny.
Yeah,
it's
never
not
helps.
different than the IRS giving you extra scrutiny.
Yeah.
Who wants it?
So another example that I always think about is when a family completes a FAFSA and they indicate very little or no assets. However, once the tax returns are reviewed, which segues... Oh, were you?
Yeah.
She steals my ideas and just all the time. She always, like, I'll say something.
Go ahead.
And
You run with it.
And then she'll be like, oh, I was going to say that too. Always.
You're doing great.
We're eating dinner or something. I'm ordering something. And she's like, oh, I want that too. Always. Okay. So, by the way, that comment was directed at people like Artie Valenti, who was encouraging me because he was tuned into our client-only webinar last night that you were unable to attend because you were doing something that was supposed to be fun. And I was having fun without you. And someone said something like, hey, I'll come by and I'll bring the tax returns next week. And I said, well, sometimes people come by and they bring baked goods like rugluck because, the Jewish holidays are coming up. Sure. And Artie, even though he's Italian, grew up in the Five Towns, and he not only spelled rugluck correctly when he texted me, but he later admitted he had spell check on, which is funny.
Conscientious.
Funny.
Very
good. He loaded up the Jewish words, but he's also from the Five Towns.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway.
That's a good rugluck.
Right. So anyway, so that was, Artie encourages this type of banter. But anyway, what I was going to get at, not Pearl, but I was going to get at, is that if you indicate you don't have savings, but then when or a certain amount of savings, but somehow magically when the financial aid office reviews your tax returns, which you'll be submitting, and notices on line 7A or 8A or whatever that you have either interest or dividend income, they're going to wonder, well, where did this income generate itself from? It didn't appear out of thin air. You must have some assets that threw it off. So that's that's another inconsistency of omission as opposed to what you were saying, which is commission.
Right.
So okay. So now let's segue over into your little fun FAFSA tip of the day.
Okay, well, as you probably know by now, October 1st is the big release date of the FAFSA and the CSS profile for the 2018-19 application year. And as we've also discussed, those forms are going to require your 2016 tax and income information. Okay, however, and as we've stated, your asset information is true as of the day you file the forms. So those are two different time zones. Okay, what's really kind of key and new, take it as you wish, I'm just going to deliver the facts.
Just the facts.
And if you would, it will mean nothing to you if you're brand new to this, but if you have had other kids or you've dealt with the FAFSA before this year, this is new.
This is breaking news.
This is breaking news. Okay. The IRS DRT, which stands for the IRS, as we all know and love,
Internal Revenue Service
data retrieval tool, is embedded within the FAFSA form itself. When I complete FAFSA forms within it, there is a link to the IRS site, and it allows you to directly pull in your tax return information from the IRS and the IRS's hub directly into the FAFSA, so that the colleges have your actual real, as really reported to the IRS, confirmed, etc., income information. Why am I making so much about this? Now, in the past, you had the option, once you did that, of altering the information that was oddly transferred from the IRS. I don't know why that was possible, because it seems really odd if you're going to make such a big deal of having whatever. We can banter about it later. But in any case,
I will.
So now your tax return information from the IRS will no longer display on the DRT webpage or in your FAFSA at all. It will only say that the information has been transferred from the IRS, period.
All right, so may I?
Yeah.
May I please? Okay. So last year, and by the way, the other wrinkle to this is last year people were pulling their information into the FAFSA, and then the government shut it down. The IRS shut it down because of some security breaches, which is always fun.
Which, by the way, that was the third thing, is that they enhanced all of their security and protections. But of course, I feel a little silly saying that in the face of the Equifax debacle this week.
Yeah, we actually got a few questions about that last night from clients in terms of what we do to protect our data. And the short answer
we live and we breathe, so we're always at risk.
Well, what Stewart, the guy who makes our software that you use, has said multiple times is, number one, he's got like government agencies like the Navy Federal Credit Union that that's his client, so he's passed all sorts of crazy protocols and stuff. Number two, we're a little too small for a hacker to really care so much compared to Equifax. They usually go after the big ones. And frankly, we use the same system for ourselves, for our kid when we applied, last year on FAFSA. So we're kind of in the same boat. So it is a risk. There's no perfect solution, but I think I feel good about it for what it's worth. Right. All right. So anyway, so what would happen last year before the IRS shut it down was that you could fill out your FAFSA, submit that, then you pull in your information using this IRS DRT data retrieval tool, and then you could see it in the FAFSA and then say, "Oh, wait a minute, that's wrong. I'm just going to change my income from $200,000 to $5."
You can adjust it.
Yes. Okay. So you can't do that anymore.
No.
Okay.
Right.
Really.
In a nutshell, correct.
I didn't even know you could do that last year.
Well, yeah, isn't that amazing? You could, and then
because you have a couple of clients who are like, "Can you change it to blah blah?" Right? I mean, I remember you going back and forth with them, and you're like, "No, I can't." Right?
Yes, because it's going to rear its head anyway. Nonetheless, it is no longer a possibility. So they get your real income information, and I assume it was to cut back on deception in that area.
On that type of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Even though my income says X,
I feel like it should. I'm going to qualify if I say.
Right. But anyway, so that's odd to me that even existed. But who knows?
Right.
It's the government.
Where it matters. Okay. So just as an aside, the IRS DRT does not work for everybody, for different reasons. I'm going to shelve the reasons, but likely
if you don't file electronically.
If you don't file electronically, if your name in any way is different on the FAFSA or your address or anything, then what they have in their system, the IRS DRT will not be available to you.
Yeah, what about if you've had someone steal your identity through the IRS?
Exactly. If you have any kind of security thing, the IRS DRT is not going to work. So what happens in those cases...
Which is a safeguard, actually.
It is. So what happens in those cases is more hurdles to jump through. For example, they are going to have to manually fill in the FAFSA, manually fill in all the information. Then they're going to have to get an actual transcript of their tax return filing from the IRS, forward it to the school, because they can no longer go on your say-so that is your income. But if you successfully use the IRS DRT now, then you will not have to, they rely on that tax information and you don't have to do any further steps.
All right. So, Pam Van Dam is on from
Hi,
soggy Florida. I guess you have power down there.
I guess.
We heard that your neighborhood, our old neighborhood, is relatively okay. Way better than, I haven't seen Anderson Cooper doing any news stories outside your house. So that's good. So hopefully everything's okay with you guys and the family. And then Michelle Canarella says hi and a thumbs up. So so if anyone has any types of specific questions about the financial aid process or scholarships, number one, pop them in comments. We'll be on another couple minutes here. And then number two, we're running a webinar tomorrow night, the 21 deadliest financial aid mistakes and how to avoid them. That is, the link is here on this page. You can register at cs4l.tv. That's the number 4, stands for College Success for Less.tv. Okay. What about scholarships? Like, this is a time that I'm certainly getting a lot of comments or a lot of questions about how do we get scholarships.
Well, first I think you got to educate on the whole penumbra of scholarship. Takes on a very large meaning.
Penumbra.
Yeah, because scholarship
That means umbrella.
a lot of things.
Yes.
Good.
Nice waving. I feel like you're gonna slap me.
Oh. Just loosening my shoulders.
They have been tight.
Yeah.
Okay. So we were on a power walk today, and Pearl spends a lot of time doing like, which is cute. Kids would love that. But it's all for the shoulder loosening.
Yes.
I mean, with all the typing of financial aid forms you do, can you blame you? No.
It's true.
Right. All right. So a lot of people have heard about all these like little scholarships that are out there, like for being left-handed in Greek and your last name starting with the letter Z and so forth. And to some extent, they certainly exist. But here are a couple of comments. So first of all, the big money is not from there. The big money comes from the college's endowment funding itself, meaning what they have in their coffers to bribe kids to come, whether it's need-based, which is based on all the financial aid forms that we've been talking about, or something else, which is broadly under the penumbra called merit-based. And merit-based does not just mean kids with super crazy high grades and scores and Doogie Howser, type students, but it means anything that's not considered need-based. That's really the difference.
Or a combination of the two.
Were you leaning into the prop?
Yep.
Yeah, still a prop.
For emphasis.
Yeah, the mic's actually there, but this is,
For emphasis.
Yeah, yes. Can you hear me? Were you doing the same thing I was doing again?
No, I leaned into the mic first, and then you just started copying me.
Yeah. Season 3, not off to the best start, I have to say, of College Talk Tuesday. I don't know if we're going to get picked up by the networks.
I'm much more glass half full.
Yeah.
I think it's getting off to a great start.
Okay. We'll see what the networks say.
Okay.
All right. So, anyway, there's a lot of money out there for, families who are affluent. There's a lot more money going to families who make six-figure incomes, which is not the most politically correct thing to say, but that's just how colleges use their money. And they're looking for kids from good zip codes who can pay some of the bill, and also are going to class up their rankings in U.S. News and World Report, which came out I think yesterday, by the way.
Okay.
And so we should probably do a show on that. And they have their own agenda, which is to get more money from affluent families, but also to make them rank higher than they did last year. That's very important to them. So that's why they're looking for kids who are above average in terms of grades and scores. So rule of thumb wise, the most money you're going to get is from a college endowment, where you look at yourself compared to the other kids who are applying, and you find that you're in the top 25% in terms of grades and scores. That's really the best rule of thumb I can give. Then in terms of those outside scholarships, like from the Knights of Columbus and Chamber of Commerce and all these websites and whatever, the thing about those is, number one, they require more work for kids to do. I'm not saying this judgmentally, but it's more essays and applications and things like that to fill out. If you can find something that you qualify for, which is really the biggest rabbit hole that you can go down, is spending days that turn into weeks and months searching for this stuff. But even if you do find stuff that pertains to you, then you've got to layer on these extra essays on top of the already stressful and hard to get going on college applications and essays just to get in.
Right.
And then if you're going to get money, and you also from these scholarships, $500 here and there, and you don't, and you also qualify for need-based aid from filling out the forms, which basically figures out your resources to be able to pay for college. Then what happens? Pearl.
Then they will take those outside scholarships and hold them against you because you don't qualify for quite as much need.
Right.
So you did all of this work to end up in the same place, actually a little worse, because now you're qualifying for less, and that's the rub. That's the problem.
Right. So when you complete the financial aid applications, the FAFSA and other forms, you're telling them what your resources are that you have to be able to pay for college.
Right.
If you then go after the fact and obtain more resources from outside scholarships, that is why the college financial aid offices will reduce their initial award, because you now have more resources.
Right.
Hopefully they'll take away some of the loans first, but that's what can happen. So you just have to be aware.
Right.
Hyper aware of that. Yeah. But we do, we certainly can help with all this stuff if you're interested in us. Even if you're not, you're more than welcome to continue watching us. We're doing this every Tuesday at 12 p.m. on College Talk Tuesday. And one last plug for the webinar that we're doing tomorrow night, the 21 deadliest financial aid mistakes and how to avoid each and every one of them. And that's actually based on a book that we started writing like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's a short book, but you know how many mistakes we came up with?
In the 50s?
Almost, yeah, I think we came up with 41.
Right.
Yeah, and I know there's far more.
Yeah.
So we're going to be zipping through this tomorrow night. Starts at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Pearl's going to be drinking a lot of coffee to stay up. And you can sign up here. And please share this with anyone. We appreciate that. Thank you for all the likes and comments. If you're watching this on replay, please pop a comment in, and we will do our best to, if you have a question, and we'll do our best to answer that in a relatively timely fashion. Do you have anything else you'd like to say on our Back to School episode, Season 3 of College Talk Tuesday?
Good luck, everyone, and hopefully everyone has a wonderful school year.
Yeah, and if you have any suggestions in terms of upcoming topics that you want to hear about, that's another thing you can pop in the comments.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Then we
keep
can
it college related.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.